All right, people. So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series on current affairs. Now, today we are going to cover 1 week's current affairs related to the subject of economics. If you have been following this lecture series, you know this that we cover current affairs subject wise. And in one lecture, we cover 1 week's current affairs related to a particular subject. Now, today is Monday, and on Mondays, we cover economics related current affairs from the past 1 week. Now, needless to say this right at the outset of the lecture, that make this lecture series a part of your daily routine because current affairs should be a daily exercise, a daily habit of yours. If you'll spend just 45 minutes of your day to this exercise, 30 minutes of watching the lecture and 15 minutes of it revising from the notes, just 45 minutes, if this is your daily habit, it will serve you really well till your exams. And on that day of exams also, you would really thank me. So make this lecture series, make this exercise, 45-minute exercise, a part of your daily routine. All right then, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away dive into the lecture. Let's begin. So current affairs economics, July part 1. Since this week belongs to July, this from which we are covering economics related current affairs. So that is why we have written July part 1. Now, first let's take a look at the topics that we shall cover in today's lecture. Okay, so these are the topics that need to be covered. Number one topic is called RBI proposes digital banking fraud safeguards. Okay, so RBI came out with a circular with a set of guidelines that would prevent digital frauds because most of our monetary system has gone online now. And that is why digital frauds, cyber scams are on the rise. So RBI released this for the banking system. Then, number two, geopolitical risk mitigation in the Strait of Hormuz. With the blockade in Strait of Hormuz, we realized that we need to make our supply chains more resilient, right? We need to make it more resilient. Otherwise, our economy could collapse if any such crisis repeats itself in the future. So this is related to that. And the third topic is HSBC India June PMI, Purchasing Managers Index, highlights moderation. Well, Purchasing Managers Index is a monthly index that basically reflects India's manufacturing and services activity. So it has displayed some moderation, economic slowdown. So we will talk about this as well. Plus, we would focus more on what PMI is all about. Okay. So these are the three news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one. Starting with topic number one, and that is RBI proposes digital banking fraud safeguards. Now, you see, ever since 2016-17, when RBI realized that online transactions, online payments are on the rise and most of human beings in India would rely on online payments, RBI was conscious of the fact that since everything is moving online from the physical space to the online space, well, vulnerabilities of online space would come out. Now, what are the vulnerabilities of online space? Cyber frauds, cyber attacks, cyber scams. And we all know that these digital scams are on the rise. Plus, it's very difficult for law and order agencies to catch the criminals who are conducting these cyber scams because these cyber scams are conducted from outside India. So there is a sense of limitation. That is why RBI came out with these guidelines, okay, which banks have to follow, which us customers have to follow so that we are secure 80 to 90% of the time. Okay, we need to follow these guidelines for our own safety, and banks need to follow these guidelines for, well, their own customer safety, right? Now, these guidelines were first released in 2017, then they were updated, and now the third updation is going on in 2026. Now, this third updated version of these guidelines were released recently. We need to talk about this, and we'll also talk about the policy implications, the significance of these guidelines, right? It is an important topic for UPSC. You need to know about this. So let's begin. So RBI proposes digital banking fraud safeguards, okay? So the rapid expansion of digital public infrastructure, which accounts for nearly 49% of real-time digital payments, okay, has triggered an evolution in cyber fraud tactics. Okay, so cyber criminals have evolved their tactics. While legacy 2017 guidelines focus primarily on unauthorized hacking, modern financial crimes lean heavily on authorized push payment fraud, where basically the victims, people like you and me, by mistake share our OTP, passwords, because we are scammed. It's not technical hacking, it is basically psychological manipulation that these hackers are doing. Earlier, the frauds were technical hacking, but now systems have become a lot hack-proof. Now, these cyber criminals are manipulating you psychologically by calling you, saying a different story, okay, a very believable story for some, and then taking all your information and then scamming you. Okay, so well, this is happening. That is why these 2026 guidelines are focused more on this psychological manipulation. The 2017 ones were basically based on hacks, technical. This is more, well, guidelines which are more behavioral in nature. Okay. Now, what are the core operational pillars of these guidelines? Okay, so 4 core things have been revealed in these guidelines. First of all, comprehensive transaction coverage. The 2026 directions cover all electronic payment methods. Okay, the earlier guidelines did not cover every online payment. This covers all types of online payments, whether it's UPI, IMPS, banking transaction, NEFT, RTGS, and others like debit card, credit cards. Every form of online payments are covered in this. Okay. Then number 2, explicit definition of third-party breaches. Now, what are third-party breaches? Well, look, when you are involved in a transaction, okay, there are 2 parties involved in any payment-related transaction. One is you, the customer, and the other is bank, because we make online payments through banks only. These are the 2 involved parties. But there are other parties involved as well. Okay. For example, there are payment aggregators. Then there are website creators who create this digital interface. Then, for example, there are these payment gateways like Visa, MasterCard. There are so many people involved in all of this. These other people are called third parties. Now, sometimes there is a cyber fraud because of negligence on the part of these third parties. Sometimes it's negligence on part of you. You are not careful. Sometimes banks are not careful. And sometimes these third party aggregators or third party people who are involved in that transaction, they are not careful. So we need a proper definition of third party breaches so that sometime in future, if there is a fraud because of these third party breaches, we can claim compensation from them. Okay, it is provable that it is because of you that I am being scammed. You understand the point, right? Then third, mandate for instant alert. Now, because RBI controls all banks in India, so RBI has mandated all banks that any transaction above 500 rupees, okay, any transaction above 500 rupees, well, for that transaction, an alert, an SMS alert, email alert, or WhatsApp alert should be provided to the customer. So if a customer does any transaction more than 500, well, an SMS or an email would come to them about telling or revealing details about that transaction. Make sense? So that if there is a, well, unauthorized transaction, then the customer gets to know about it, right? And fourth, differentiating bank versus customer negligence. Cyber scams happen. Sometimes it's the fault of banks. They did not generate an instant alert. They did not do this. They did not do due diligence. And sometimes it's because of you, customers. Why? You shared the OTP with an unauthorized person. You shared your password. That's because of customer negligence also. So clear definition of these negligences is required so that tomorrow, if there is a case, well, we need to know the full picture. So a proper definition of bank negligence and customer negligence is provided in these guidelines. Make sense? Plus, for the very first time, RBI also came up with a compensation framework. Okay, if there is a fraud against you which is less than 50,000, then you can receive compensation of up to 25,000. Okay, there is a proper mechanism, but there are a few conditions. Okay, condition number 1, this is a one-time compensation. Okay, so if you are defrauded once, you can receive this compensation. If you are defrauded again also, then this compensation won't come to you. Once in a lifetime. Okay, once in a lifetime compensation. And the other is, you have registered a complaint within 5 days. Okay, so there is a fraud against you. Within 5 working days, you have registered a complaint on National Cyber Crime Portal. These are the 2 conditions to claim this compensation. So this is the first time that RBI is providing this compensation, making it mandatory. So it's a good thing, right? Now, the 3-way cost sharing model. Now, RBI is providing this compensation framework. So that means customers would be paid. Now, who would share the burden of this cost? It is going to be huge. Okay, up to 25,000 would be doled out to people against whom certain scams are committed. So a lot of money would have to be given to these customers. Now, who would share this burden? Well, for losses below 29,000, 65% would be funded via Deposit Education and Awareness Fund of RBI. 10% contribution money would come from bank. 10% contribution, the bank holding the mule or scammer account. Okay. So if there is a fraud less than 29,000, 65% would come from RBI, 10% would come from your bank, and 10% would come from the fraudster's bank, because the fraudsters told you that transfer this 25,000 to this bank account. So 10% would come from that. Okay. So this is how things go. If losses are less than 29,000, if losses are between 29 to 50,000, and if it is a cross-border scenario, okay, you are transferring money into an overseas bank, then you can't take any money from the fraudster's bank. This is a three-way cost-sharing formula. Just read it briefly, okay? Just give it a reading. You don't have to remember each and every detail. Just remember that three parties are going to fund your compensation. Clear? Now, how are we going to use AI to solve this fraud problem? Okay, so there is this thing called mulehunter.ai. RBI rolled out a centralized AI ML tool designed specifically to detect, flag, and freeze mule accounts used by scammers to layer and move stolen money. Okay, so these accounts would be detected in the banking system using this AI tool. It has been made mandatory for banks. So we are using AI to identify fraudsters and their bank accounts. Okay. Then Indian Digital Payment Intelligence Corporation, incorporated as a Section 8 company. Section 8 company means not-for-profit company. Not-for-profit company registered under Companies Act. So this organization acts as a central intelligence unit. So we have created an intelligence agency. It uses big data and network analytics to identify fraud patterns across different payment applications, simultaneously stopping coordinated scams before they go viral. Okay, so we have done two things. The government is doing two things to protect you from these cyber scams. One is using AI, one creating a dedicated agency, intelligence agency against cyber criminals and cyber frauds. Okay, and this agency is more preventive. It will detect whether some cyber scams are becoming viral, and beforehand it will inform everyone. Okay, so this is how it works, and this is required, by the way. All right, okay, then that's about it. Now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is geopolitical risk mitigation in Strait of Hormuz. You see, when Strait of Hormuz was blockaded, India was suffering economically. Why? Well, first of all, the supply of crude oil that got disrupted. India requires crude oil for basically oiling its economic machinery. Then the supply of natural gas also disrupted, because India was being supplied these liquefied natural gas through ships and containers passing through Strait of Hormuz. Now, natural gas not only powers our energy infrastructure, natural gas is also a raw material used to manufacture fertilizers in India. So this blockade impacted Indian agriculture also. So a lot of important things were being sourced from ships passing through Strait of Hormuz. And when Strait of Hormuz stopped, well, these critical supplies to India's economy, they got disrupted, right? Now, this crisis made India realize that we need to diversify our supply chains. We cannot wholly depend on supplies from Strait of Hormuz. We need to find alternative shipping routes. We need to find alternative partner countries which can supply natural gas and petrol, crude oil. Okay, we can't rely on Gulf countries only, because Gulf countries would supply from Strait of Hormuz only. So we need alternative partners. We need alternative trade routes. And the third thing is, we need to start manufacturing on our own so that we are not dependent on imports. So if India was manufacturing fertilizers on its own, then it wouldn't have been concerned about supplies being blockaded at Strait of Hormuz. So we need three things. Number one, alternative shipping routes. Number two, alternative supply countries. And number three, domestic manufacturing, right? So this is our entire strategy to avert a future crisis, okay, or isolate India from all these geopolitical crises. So let's talk about this in detail. Let's begin. Geopolitical risk mitigation in Strait of Hormuz. So the context: Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers confirmed the successful arrival and offloading of 15 strategic cargo vessels that safely transited the volatile Strait of Hormuz. 15 cargo vessels came safely from Strait of Hormuz. And the reason why Ministry of Chemicals was able to do that, because it sought assistance from Indian Navy. Indian naval ships were escorting these cargo vessels. Okay, so that if someone attacks these cargo vessels because of this conflict, well, the Indian Navy would protect them. So we leveraged Indian naval vessels to basically give protection to these strategic cargo vessels. So this is one way of securing India's supply chain. There are various other ways also. Now, strategic vulnerabilities. First of all, you need to know about Strait of Hormuz. What is the strategic significance of Strait of Hormuz? So look at this map, because map-based questions are also asked. So this is the critical Strait of Hormuz. It connects Gulf of Iran with Gulf of Oman, okay, and then Arabian Sea, from where it reaches India. Clear? Now it is a very narrow choke point, and this is Iran over here. Iran can easily blockade this. It is bordered, this Strait of Hormuz is bordered by UAE, Oman and Iran, and it connects Gulf of Iran and Gulf of Oman. So be clear of the geography also, because geography based, map based questions are asked. Okay, so here's the physical geography aspect. It is narrow, strategically vital waterway connecting Persian Gulf with Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea. It is bounded by Iran, Musandam Peninsula, okay, Musandam Peninsula in Oman. This is the Musandam Peninsula, okay, and UAE. Now, why is it vulnerable? Why Strait of Hormuz is vulnerable? Because it is just 33 kilometers wide. So Iran can easily blockade it. Iran can say that anyone passing through this Strait of Hormuz would be attacked by our missiles. And Iran can easily cover these 33 kilometers through its missiles and deep sea mines. So this is why it is vulnerable, strategically speaking. Plus, Strait of Hormuz is extremely important, critical for our energy resilience. Okay, how so? Strait of Hormuz is our essential energy pipeline. How so? Global hydrocarbon pulse, because this entire Strait of Hormuz handles over 20 to 30% of world's total LNG and crude petroleum. And countries like India and China depend on this liquefied natural gas and petroleum. So 20 to 30% of the world's LNG passes through this. Then India's dependency. India channels 30% of its raw LNG essential for driving local agro fertilizer plants. Okay, 30% of India's LNG is utilized to manufacture fertilizers. So if there is no LNG, well, there is no fertilizers. No fertilizers, then, well, yields would drop, farm yields. And when farm yields drop, two things happen. Farmers' income decline, so this leads to rural distress. And well, because supplies have gone down of food items, demand is high, it leads to food inflation, which is also a problem for everyone in India. So overall, there is a crisis just because we do not get LNG. That's how critical Strait of Hormuz was for us. Okay. Now, this is the fertilizer vulnerability. While globally everyone was focusing on crude oil and natural gas, India was worried about fertilizers. Okay. Natural gas is the primary feedstock used to produce urea. We produce urea through natural gas. And urea is the most used, most consumed fertilizer in India. India relies heavily on long-term LNG pipelines and vessels routed from Qatar through Strait of Hormuz to feed its domestic fertilizer PSUs. Urea in India is manufactured, though much of urea is imported. But much of urea is also manufactured locally by Indian PSUs. They need natural gas as raw material. That was blocked. The 15 vessels guarded by Indian naval assets secured vital agricultural imports. These 15 vessels, that is why Ministry of Chemicals made the announcement, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, because these 15 vessels were carrying raw material for urea, DAP, diammonium phosphate, the second most consumed fertilizer, and sulfur, because sulfur is used to create phosphoric acid. And phosphoric acid is used as a raw material to basically create phosphate fertilizers. You all know about NPK. We need fertilizers to provide these nutrients: NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. Now, urea provides nitrogen, DAP provides nitrogen and potash, nitrogen and phosphorus. Potash is provided by potash muriate and all that. So we needed these raw materials. Clear? That is why it was big news. Now, what strategy has India employed to secure its supply chain? This is known as supply chain insulation strategy. So there are two strategies which are more external, and there is one strategy which is internal. Okay, you can see through this table. This is the strategy we have followed so far. Number one is tactical defense, naval escorts. This is known as Operation Sankalp. All commercial vessels shall be escorted by Indian Navy, like this. Okay, this will secure Indian ships, Indian commercial ships. So this is step or strategy number one. Then geopolitical strategy, Red Sea diversification. Red Sea diversification means that we are going to secure alternative or look for alternative shipping routes, because Iran crisis won't get solved. People are guessing it won't get solved. So Gulf of Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz can be blocked in future also. So look for alternative routes. There is an alternative route from here, the Red Sea route. Okay, we are looking for Red Sea diversification and other sea routes to bypass Strait of Hormuz completely. Okay, and the third strategy is domestic decoupling. Okay, which means that we need to be self-reliant, Atmanirbhar, to reduce our import dependence. This is strategy number two. Reduce foreign market exposure. Just a second. Yeah. Reduce foreign market exposure. So this is the three-pronged strategy that we are following as of now. Okay. And what can be the way forward? Number one, deepening friend-shoring mining model. There are so many critical minerals that we need. Okay. Now we can either produce those critical minerals in India, or we ask our friendly nations, nations that are friendly to us, to produce those critical minerals, and we would take mining licenses in those friendly countries. This is known as friend-shoring. Either produce something yourself on your own shores or on your friends' shores. Friend-shoring. This is an idea that is being floated across the world to reduce dependence from China, because there are many countries who are not friendly with China, but they are dependent on Chinese supplies. So they are looking for friend-shoring, friendly countries who can produce same material. Then transitioning to nano urea and alternative fertilizers, okay, which are not dependent on natural gas. And third, expanding strategic fertilizer reserve. We have strategic petroleum reserve. You all know about this, that India already has 90 days of stored petroleum, so that if there is any supply disruption, we can use this petrol from this reserve, petroleum from this reserve. We need to have a fertilizer reserve as well, okay, in which we will keep 90 or 100 days of fertilizer supply. That's a genuine strategy, okay, that's a pretty logical and understandable strategy. So these are the three things that can be mentioned in your mains answers as way forward. And these are the three things that are currently being done by the Indian government. Clear? Make sense? Simple? All right then. Let's move forward to third news item, and that is HSBC India June PMI highlights moderation. Now look, there is this index which is calculated every month called Purchasing Managers Index. Now this index is not calculated by Indian government, it is calculated by private agencies. And this index basically talks about business activity in India. Okay, manufacturing businesses, services businesses. Okay, now remember this thing. It is called a high frequency indicator because it is released every month. So it talks about Indian economy's performance every month, very quickly, high frequency. You don't have to wait for GDP data after 1 year. The data would come to you every month. This is PMI. Now, recently the data for June was released, okay, by HSBC. Okay. Now, the thing is that, well, the data talks about some moderation in both manufacturing and services sector, but that is not something that we should study, okay, because these indices go up and down every month. You can't track each month's movement. You should focus more on what is PMI, okay, what is Purchasing Managers Index, its comparison with another monthly indicator which is calculated by Government of India, that is Index of Industrial Production. This is something you should focus on because questions would be asked from this area only. Questions won't focus on the monthly movement of PMI. Clear? Make sense? So let's talk about this topic. So HSBC India June PMI highlights moderation. So the news was that look, PMI stands for Purchasing Managers Index. Okay. Now in Purchasing Managers Index, what the thing is, first of all, it is released by a private organization, not government. And in this, basically, this private organization conducts a survey across managers in various companies. Okay, so a questionnaire, a survey question booklet is given to top company managers and they answer questions. And based on their questions, based on the answers given by those top managers, the questions are related to, well, how much demand is there for the business, how much, what is the scenario for raw material supply, how many people you have employed, such types of questions. Based on their answers, well, a score is released between 0 to 100. If the score is greater than 50, that means that particular sector is expanding. If the score is less than 50, then that particular business is contracting. Score less than 50 is always bad. Okay. Now, PMI is released for two categories. There is PMI manufacturing for manufacturing sector. There is PMI for services sector. And then there is PMI combined, composite PMI, which contains data from both manufacturing and services sector. Clear? So this is what PMI is in broad terms. Now, macro interpretive lens. Well, PMI is also known as a diffusion index. Why? Because the data is coming from diffused places, sources. Look, PMI is an empirical diffusion index calculated from monthly questionnaires sent to purchasing executives at roughly 400 private firms. So the data is coming from more than 400 private firms. It is diffused. It is not a centralized source. A reading above 50, we all have discussed this. Now, the data for June, well, it says that Indian growth is moderating, yet it is more than all the other comparative countries of the world. So India is growing, but not as fast as, well, a month ago. So it is the growth paradox, basically, that it is growing more than the other countries, but it is still not growing as per its potential. That's what is being said. Again, don't focus on June data, July data, April data. That is not important. This point is important. Okay. Now I've explained what PMI is. It is a survey-based measure. Now, the June data basically says that there is an employment pause. That means all these industry captains have paused their hiring process. So there is lack of job availability. But the good news is that the raw material price, especially in manufacturing, the raw materials purchased by these businesses, well, the prices of those raw materials are coming down and they are passing this lowering cost to end customers. So the price of raw material is coming down, therefore the price of final good is coming down. So customers are happy. Good news for people like you and me, softening prices. Okay. Now this is something that you need to focus on. It's comparison with IIP. Remember, both these indices are called high frequency indices. High frequency indicators. High frequency means data from them comes very quickly, every month. So it is a comparison between IIP and PMI. Remember, PMI is a private index, IIP is a government index. It is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So there is a comparative analysis given in this table, very easy to understand. Just go through this. Clear? That's about it. And in the end, in your notes, strategic implications of the June data are also given. But remember, I told you June data, July data, monthly data is not important for you. What is important for you is, and the reason why I included this topic in today's lecture is, you need to know about PMI. Okay, nonetheless, go through these strategic implications. There are two only. Well, sinking business confidence index, businessmen, their confidence is very low that the economy is going to do well. Plus, this means that overall there is lack of demand. When demand falls, well, inflation would come down. So this means that RBI need not increase interest rates to bring down inflation. Inflation is already coming down because there is lack of demand. And who is saying that there is lack of demand? these industry captains who have answered these questions. Okay, so that is the thing. Nonetheless, that's about it. And with that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it will add more value if you are, number one, consistent and regular with this lecture series. And number two, you revise this particular lecture from the notes provided by us. It's very important. Otherwise, you'll forget these current affairs very quickly. You need to lock these current affairs in your memory at least till your exams. Hence, revision is important. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes are shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below. So do check it out. Thank you, everyone.